Good morning, this is Dr. Rajesh Yadav from Department of Biochemistry, Galgoti University. So today we will discuss the topic cerebrum of cerebral cortex. Cerebral cortex is made up of two cerebral hemispheres which are connected by the strip that is called corpus callosum. And each cerebral hemisphere is divided into the mainly four regions: frontal lobe, temporal lobe, parietal lobe, and occipital lobe. So these are two cerebral hemisphere, and upper one is a right hemisphere and lower one is a left hemisphere. So both cerebral hemisphere are connected to each other by the corpus callosum. So this is the structure of cerebral cortex, and the four regions are appear here. One is a frontal lobe, second is a temporal lobe, third is a parietal lobe, and fourth is a occipital lobe. So the function of the frontal lobe is especially for speech because there is specific center which is called Broca's area. It is present in the frontal lobe. Temporal lobe, it is also called auditory area because the hearing is also responsible by this lobe. Third is a parietal lobe, and this parietal lobe is also called somatosensory area because it is responsible for the pain, touch, and pressure. And fourth green one is the occipital lobe, and it is also called visual area. So these are four lobes of the each cerebral hemisphere. Now come to the gyri and sulci. So this is the structure of the cortex, and it is divided into the gyri and sulci. So basically a fold of ridge in the cortex is termed as gyrus, and the plural word is gyri. In the same way, the groove, and this is the groove, this is called sulcus, and the plural word is sulci. So the surface convolution appear during the fetal development and continue to mature after brain through the process of gyrification. So by the process of gyrification, the formation of gyri and sulci occur during the fetal development. So this is the structure of the tissue slice from the brain of the adult macaque monkey. The cerebral cortex is the outer layer located in the diaphragm and violet. Source is brainmap.org. So this is the structure where I have just shown about the two main area. One is a Vinex area, it's shown here, that is called understanding area, and another is a Broca's area which is present in the frontal lobe. So some important point about the cerebral cortex. Cerebral cortex is also known as cerebral mantle, and it is the outer layer of the neural tissue of the cerebrum of the brain in human and other animals. The cerebral cortex mostly consists of 6-layered neocortex with just 10% consisting of allocortex. So the longitudinal fissure which divide the cerebrum into the left and right cerebral hemisphere, and these cerebral hemisphere is connected by the corpus callosum. Cerebral cortex is the largest site of the neural integration in the central nervous system. It plays the role in the attention, perception, awareness, thought, memory, language, and consciousness. So the major sulci and gyri mark the division of the cerebrum into the lobe of the brain. So here we have described that gyri and sulci that form different type of the lobe in the brain. There are 14 to 16 billion neurons present in the human cerebral cortex, and these are organized into the horizontal layer and vertical layer. So vertical layer is called column and mini columns. The cortex is thickest at the top of the gyrus while thinnest at the bottom of the sulcus. So larger sulci and gyri mark the division of the cortex of the cerebrum into the lobes of the brain, as we have already discussed in the previous slides, and these are lobe, frontal lobe, parietal lobe, temporal, and occipital lobe. The work of the Brodmann has established the mammalian neocortex is consistently divided into the 6 layers. So the neocortex is formed of the 6 layer, number 1 to number 6, and the outer layer is near to the pia mater. Pia mater is a covering of the brain, and outer covering of the brain, and the innermost layer is underlying the white matter. So white matter basically made up of axon of the neurons. One of the clearest example of the cortical layering is the line of Guarni, which is present in the primary visual cortex. This is the area of the occipital region. So the line of Guarni is made up of white band of tissue, and white of band of tissue, that means this is made up of axons. And it brings the visual information from thalamus to the visual cortex. So if we discuss about the thickness of the cerebral cortex, so the largest brain in human, it is a major thickness, that is a 2 to 4 millimeter, while in the smallest mammal shoe has a small thickness, or that is 0.5 millimeter. So in this way, thickness of the cerebral cortex vary from one species to the another species. So this is the structure of the cerebral cortex, where I have shown about the three important regions: Broca's area, that is present in the frontal region, and it is also responsible for the word formation. Second is the Wernicke's area, which is understanding area and present between the parietal and temporal region. And this is the Limbic Association area. It is present in the temporal region, and it is responsible for the behavior, emotion, and motivation. So sometimes it is also called a reward area. So some area combine and fix the association area. Like this is the prefrontal association area. Here parietal cortex, occipital cortex, and temporal cortex mix and form parieto-occipital temporal association area. So now come to the Broca's area, which is present in the frontal lobe of the cerebral cortex. The function of the cerebral cortex of Broca's area, especially for the speech, so the word formation occur in the Broca's area. This area also works with the close association of the Wernicke's area, which is responsible for the understanding. So the important facts of the cerebral cortex is that when the person has already learned one language and then learns a new language, the area in the brain where the new language is stored is slightly removed from the storage area for the first language. If the both languages are learned simultaneously, they are stored together in the same area of the brain. So next important topic is the limbic association area. As we have already discussed, that limbic association area is present in the temporal region and responsible for behavior, emotion, and motivation. So this area is found anterior pole of the temporal lobe, in the ventral portion of the frontal lobe, and in the cingulate gyrus lying deep in the longitudinal fissure on the mild surface of each cerebral hemisphere. So limbic system provide most of the emotional drive for activating the areas of the brain. So this is the area of recognition of face. So occipital lobe and temporal lobe both commonly form the area which is responsible for the recognition of the face. So if any lesion occurs in that region, occipital and temporal region, so people is unable to recognize the face, and such disease is called prosophanesia. So this is the brain pathway for perceiving a heard word and then speaking the same word. That means when we are listening, it comes into the primary auditory area, and primary auditory area to it give into the Wernicke's area, where we can understand what we have listened. And from the Wernicke's area, it goes into the Broca's area. So after understanding, we give the response, or we are telling something. So that is a work of Broca's area. And then it goes into the motor cortex. So it is the pathway when we can listen anything and respond here. In the same way, when we are perceiving a written word and then speaking the same word. So when we are perceiving a written word, or when we see any figure, and when we read something like this is the figure, and we are visualizing area by the primary visual area. So primary visual area is active here, and it gives the information to the Wernicke's area, where we can understand what we have seen. and from the vernix area it goes into the Broca's area, and through the Broca's area the response or speech is coming, and that goes into the motor cortex. So in this way, this is the path of perceiving a word and then speaking the same word or another things. Now come to the disease related to the vernix area. So first is the vernix aphasia, and then we will discuss about the global aphasia. So what is the vernix aphasia? The pupil is capable of understanding either the spoken word or written word, but unable to interpret the thoughts that is expressed. That means people can understand the language of other people, and he can speak, he can listen spoken word and understand, but he is unable to explain that things. So this is called vernix aphasia. Next is a vernix aphasia and then global aphasia. So what is global aphasia? When this listen occur in the vernix area and it expand to the different area, like it expand to the angular gyrus, it expand to the temporal region, or it extend to the cingulate gyrus. So in this way, when the damage is extend in these three area, then the person is totally demented for the language understanding or communication, and it is called global aphasia. So in the global aphasia, people cannot understand and cannot explain anything. Thank you.